St. Michael's Cathedral has been a place of solace for the people of Toronto since 1845, when Bishop Michael Power laid its first cornerstone. And while there has been significant work done over the years to maintain and improve the exterior, it is within these walls that the current restoration work is having a profound impact. Work that will recapture the original essence of the cathedral. Inside these walls, architecturally perpendicular to the nave, are two special places of worship, the north and south ends of the transept. In keeping with the neo-Gothic Christian architecture popular at the time the cathedral was built, the transept is a section of the church set crosswise to the nave, creating a cruciform, sometimes inside the nave itself. It has served the parishioners of this community for nearly 160 years. But age has taken its toll on these special places of worship, and they're in need of restoration. In conjunction with the church, a group of skilled architects and artists have come up with a bold new design for both ends of the transept. A design that will not only reflect the vision of the cathedral going forward, but also honor its past, and most importantly, reflect the divine concepts on which this cathedral was built. Featured in this new design are two new stained glass rose windows, plus niches for statuary and candles. But perhaps the most important feature, at least from an accessibility standpoint, will be the creation of two new emergency exit doors, decorated with bronze reliefs depicting the mysteries of the Rosary. To create the narrative sculpture of these magnificent bronze doors, St. Michael's needed someone not only with a keen artistic background, but also a person of faith who would understand the importance of the messages contained within the panels. For this essential task, St. Michael's turned to local artist and parishioner Farad Nargol O'Neill.
First time I was in the building, I was probably 5 or 6 years old. Midnight Mass, and with my mother and my aunts, and my father, all the family, and I fell asleep, probably the 5th or 6th row in my mother's lap. And I can remember falling asleep but looking up at all of the paintings on the ceiling and feeling that I was at St. Peter's Cathedral. It's the greatest honor of my life, I think, as a sculptor and as a Catholic as well. After talking with Father Michael Bush, we've decided that the glorious mysteries and the joyful mysteries will be here because they're more emotionally akin to devotion to the Blessed Virgin, whereas the luminous mysteries and sorrowful mysteries will be across the nave in the south transept, devoted to the Sacred Heart, so more closely connected with Christ in the Passion. The first scene that I'm creating is the finding in the temple. So Mary and Joseph lose Jesus on the caravan back to Bethlehem. They come back to Jerusalem, and there he is in the temple discussing with all of the Levite priests and the rabbis. But what I've done is simplified the temple of Herod to something that's almost Byzantine and simple. So even though we're in the middle of a neo-Gothic cathedral, I think the feeling of devotion for Catholics should always be simple. We shouldn't get that complicated in our devotion.
After extensive research and numerous sketches, work is finally beginning on the labor-intensive task of creating the bronze doors. The artist begins by creating a grid on panels of plaster into which he will carve the scenes. These panels will be used to cast the molds that will eventually make the rosary panels for the doors. Having both the original sketch and the plaster panel marked with a grid enables the sculptor to keep a scale and design true to his artistic vision.
So you're actually looking down at the scene where the holiest of holies, the Jewish temple, is here, our Lord is here.
Farad then begins the painstaking but fulfilling months-long job of hand carving each of these plaster molds.
I'm very fortunate. It's the fulfillment of a lifetime, and I say that with all humility. You have to sacrifice a lot, but if you have a strong faith, that helps. It always helps to believe what it is you're actually doing. As a religious Catholic, it's the pinnacle of the expression of faith, and to be able to do that, doing what I love, is enormous.
Farad's completed plaster sculptures will each be sent away to Artcast Foundry in Georgetown, Ontario, where exact replicas of his work will be molded in wax, tweaked by Farad, and then sent on to the next stage where they will be cast in bronze.
Casting is something that's been done for an awfully long time, thousands of years old. The difference is the material. We tend to flatter ourselves that we're the pinnacle of human creation, but I've seen castings that are over 2,000 years old that are so detailed, and they were cast in metal. I mean, it's just incredible what people can do when they put their mind to it.
Months later, Farad's sculpture is at Artcast Foundry, where it has been cast in wax using the dump mold technique.
This is the mold for the first door, and this is a silicone rubber, and it's basically all keyed into the plaster. We actually pour the wax in 3 stages. So the first wax coat is about 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and we pour that in to get all the detail from the rubber from the original. So it'll get all these details up in the windows. If there's a thumbprint in there, it would take the thumbprint. Then we use the cool wax, which is about 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and that has to bond with the first coat right away, and that builds up thickness. The third coat is even cooler, and that will just end up being our final thickening coat, so that the wax will be 3/16 of an inch thick. And that's what we want for a good casting quality. Then the artist comes in and will inspect and make changes.
Farad arrives to put the final touches on his work before it's set for eternity in bronze.
It's a great job, Holly.
Including the addition of the separately sculpted figures that stand out from the relief panel.
I'll take a look at things, and I'm also trying to think of how things are going to look from a distance, because no one's going to be seeing these close up, right? The only one thing that I was going to do is Mary's face is too flat, and all I'm going to do is bring out her nose a little bit, you know? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's it, right? I think it's ready to go.
The completed wax panel mold has been dipped in liquid clay to create a negative clay replica. This clay duplicate is then filled with molten bronze and left to solidify, creating a solid bronze exact copy of Farad's original work. It is this bronze casting that will eventually be on display at St. Michael's Cathedral. But first, it has to be passed to the welders at Artcast. The sculpted figures were also cast separately from the base portion of the sculpture, and it's at this stage that they'll be permanently welded into place.
My interests don't so much lie in the art per se, but the technical challenge to reproduce it. I'm always fascinated with process and stuff and trying to control all of that. The artists, I'm amazed at their creative bent and what they come up with. My energy is spent on how to recreate that faithfully with the technologies I have. Canada is a much younger country. The classic stuff hasn't really made its way to Canada the same way it's traditionally done in Europe and things. So to do sort of a classic, spectacular work for the church that will be there for centuries to come is really kind of a rewarding experience for us. And really the first time in our 50-year history we're doing anything that extensive.
Now that the figures have a permanent home within the frame, the entire piece is given over to the sandblaster, where all rough spots are sanded away, leaving a smooth, polished piece. Final pass with the grinder and a bit of patina at the end of this stage, and Farad's work is ready to move on. The finished bronze pieces are sent to Martina Masick for the final stage of work. She'll apply a covering of delicate gold leaf to make these original representations of the mysteries of the Rosary really stand out.
So I'm going to do the whole perimeter first. Sort of, get into a flow. You start moving like bigger pieces, and you have to use a static. You can't touch it because it'll just dissolve.
So you're getting
Absolutely, static and oil from your hair on the brush. This is oil gilding, so this can actually go outside. This will be there. It's a sort of historical. It's like a big honor to be able to do this. I was very excited.
After many painstaking hours, Martina finishes gilding the first of the 20 panels.
Okay.
Farad arrives to inspect the completed work of art.
fantastic. Great job. Thanks, Martina.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. It's a pleasure.
No, excellent.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
and it's got that sort of blood red feeling to it, and the reflections.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love that. So it's just perfect, Martina. Thank you. You did a great job.
And with Farad's approval, the first of the bronze reliefs is complete. But there's still a lot to be done. Farad will be back in his office atop the bell tower at St. Michael's Cathedral, working away at the remaining 19 panels. Once completed, they will be added to the refurbished transept, creating not only beautiful works of art, but also beacons of faith, representative of St. Michael's importance to the Catholics of Toronto.